if I'm going to make a decision on something, I need to measure the total cost of ownership about it. And to me, that kind of breaks down into 5 different things. The cost of knowledge, meaning if I'm going to adopt our library, what do I have to expense in terms of time, energy, and dollars to make sure that the knowledge of that library is equally distributed across the team members that I have? And there's a relation there to how big the team and also a relation to how long I need to keep this thing going, which leads to the next one, which is the cost of maintenance. Like, fine, you've adopted a library, you've adopted a service, you've adopted an infrastructure tool, but how long is this going to be going on? And how long are you going to be invested in maintaining it and invested in having team members continue to run it or update it or deploy it or monitor it, whatever the functionality is given the component that we're discussing? There's also the cost of the ecosystem, which we're very familiar with in the JavaScript world. Basically, pick the library that has the most contributors. But even in tooling sense or infrastructure sense, if you're going to buy into Kubernetes, for example, you're going to buy into a whole set of other things that you're also going to buy into and pay the cost of, which also leads to the cost of infrastructure. If you're going to adopt a vendor product, cool, you're adopting a vendor product, but is there infrastructure cost associated with that? Most people forget about that when they're doing the choices of technology, saying, I'm just going to use Gmail. Okay, you're using G Suite then, which means you have to do everything through APIs. You no longer have access, for example, to the low levels systems of file storage and data storage. Now you have to have tools and libraries and desktop application management for IT teams, right? Like, there's all this kind of concepts that people have to measure before they get to the real cost that most people think about, or not the real cost, but before they get to the cost that most people actually think about, which is the cost of adoption, i.e. how long it will take me to implement, right? So when I look at this big picture of the cost of ownership, I look at the way people make their decisions and the way people try to take shortcuts by saying, you know what, I can build a login system myself. It's only a couple of libraries, and my cost of adoption is a day's worth of work or 2 days worth of work before I go and just deploy it, and then I'm done, hands clean. This is it. This is how it costs. And they forget about maintenance. They forget about knowledge sharing. They forget about the ecosystem around it, and they forget about the infrastructure involved. So that's kind of like the preamble to where's those kind of solved problems that exist already and how people try to resolve them or reinvent the wheel around them. And my experience has been also, and to like Emma's earlier point of like all the stuff that I was able to get things shipped, I get things shipped by simplifying the problem and getting down to the basics rather than trying to break things apart and say, hey, let's use this library instead of that. I start with the basic thing of saying, why are we even doing this to begin with? Let's discuss there. And is there shortcuts and cheaper options to follow?